Hi everyone, as promised, today I'm going to do a watercolor video. So for those of you who are subscribed to my channel for watercolor reviews and illustrations, I hope you will enjoy this video. I will basically try out these papers that I got on Jackson's Art a while ago, and I haven't had a chance to sample them yet. So these are paper samples that you can get on different art shops, and this particular one is, like I said, Jackson's Art, and they have great variety of different sample sets you can get. This one is Cuthberts. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Cuthberts Mill, and they have Bockingford and Milford ranges, and all of these it says white on here, and then there's on the other side there is the Saunders Waterford, so 3 different ranges. And yeah, so all the colors are white, even though this seems off-white rather than white, but depending on the range, that's how it is. Sorry, my memory card got full, so I had to stop. So yeah, so I was saying that they're different. So this set is quite generous. It has quite a few papers in there, and they're super cheap. I think I paid either 50p or £1, something like that. Then I ordered separately. This didn't come in this set. It doesn't say it on the actual paper, but I think it was St. Cuthbert's Mill brand, and this is their Botanical Ultra Smooth. So for those of you who are into botanical illustrations, you might like this paper. So the other thing to say quite quickly, that all of them are 300 GSM, and they are different textures. So I'm going to go ahead and try those out. And then also I ordered Artistica Fabriano, which basically has 4 sheets, 2 and 2. So let's have a look. So it's got two sheets that are extra wide. So these would be these papers, and then there's traditional white, which is this one, which is slightly off-white. Both of them are 300 GSM. They are both cold press, so they're not rough textured. As there is, so if you're new to this, there is the hot press, which is the smooth paper with no texture or very little texture. Then there is the cold pressed, which is the textured, like this one is, so it has a tooth to it. And then there is the rough, and the third type is very kind of textured. So, and then you obviously have some occasions the super smooth, the ultra smooth, which are quite speciality papers, like for botanical painting. So I didn't come across an ultra smooth before, and so let's see how that goes. So yeah, so that's what I have. I have used Fabriano paper in while I was on the summer vacations. In fact, I'll just quickly grab this sketchbook, and I was saying how much I loved it, and I wanted to get hold of some of this. So this was the sketchbook that I used. It says Aquarella Watercolor Torsion Extra Rough. Okay, so this one was extra rough, and this it was 270 GSM, and I really enjoyed it. Just as an example, I'll show you this last page right here. So although it says extra rough, the texture is really not that rough at all. So that's why it's important to have the sample paper so that you can actually compare. So here, this one just being cold pressed, which is supposed to have less tooth than an extra rough or a rough, you can see that in fact this one has more texture. And I'm not entirely sure, but sometimes I think these big paper brands, they do like a collaboration with other brands, and they can come out with different things. Like this one is the torch, and either it's the collection or it's a separate brand within. So anyway, do your research with papers. As I just showed you a good example, extra rough, you know, is not necessarily what you would expect. So if you would expect a really rough textured paper and you buy this, you'd be disappointed. But having said that, I really loved working on this paper. It was just so gorgeous, and although it's 270 and not 300 GSM, it was just perfect. It felt to me like a 300 GSM paper. So yes, I love this type of texture. It's more on a smooth. I'm very confused why it's actually extra rough, called extra rough, but this paper is fantastic because it's not as smooth as this one, but it has a very light texture to it, and it just makes it, it's just perfect. So I have to see where I can find this particular paper because it was really fun to use. Okay, so let me go ahead and open up these papers, and we will start by looking how the paper, how the watercolor is behaving on these papers. Okay, so I have taken out all the papers out. I'm going to use my Schminke Hordam watercolors to do the swatches. So I'll do the kind of blending of the color wheel, and I will do the same on all of them. So let's see, basically the first two are the Fabriano papers, and they're not labeled. It would have helped if they labeled them. So let's go ahead, and essentially here what would be useful to see, it's exactly the same paper. So let me just remind you, it's 300 GSM, and this one is extra white and traditional white, and it's cold pressed. So it's very simple. I am going to use lemon yellow. So as I was just trying to say, that it is quite often good to see, just trying to think, how did I do this? I think I've done, did I do red? Yeah. Okay, so I think, just trying to see, I think this was this one here. Okay, so then I'm going to put scarlet red. My swatches, I confused my swatches, I'll just show you quickly. I basically put scarlet red here, but it's actually in fact in between cadmium red light and perylene maroon, so I always have to count it to see where it is. And that's why I was just a little bit taken aside. So I'm just going to now blend the two. Okay, so I got distracted again. What I was trying to say is that it's useful for you to see how different a color would look if it is, for example, on a whiter color and on a slightly off-white, and it would help you to decide what you like really. So I'm just going to take this slightly down and then take this one and connect the two, and then I'm going to take ultramarine, which is the ultramarine finest. Maybe I'll just put the watercolors over here, and I'll put it right here, and then I'll try to connect the two and see what kind of purple I can get here. I never do these things correctly. I kind of should have gone around it more, but I tend to do all of the colors in a half circle and then have a very long green, which you will see in a second. So for the warm blue, I'm going to go with the cerulean blue hue, which is is this one here. So I'm going to put that right here and take it out and then go over and connect them too. So over here I'm going to go back into the cerulean blue, take it slightly out, and then the way I do this is like a bit of a cheat, I guess, but I then kind of do this, and sometimes it gives me a nice variety, sometimes it's a bit, yeah, so this green is short. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other papers. So the next one will be the Traditional White by Fabriano, and then thereafter you will see the labels of the papers, so you will be able to tell the difference. And the other thing I will show you really quickly, for example, so here you have two cold pressed, but they're different ranges. So this is the Bockingford and this is the Milford, both by Suncutcher's Mill. So if you look at the texture of the cold press, they are different. So this one kind of like almost going in line, and this one is going upwards, if that makes sense. Also, here is a comparison of rough, and rough has similar texture to the Bockingford rough has similar texture to Bockingford cold, but it's just on a bigger scale. So as you can see right here, this is a smaller texture, and these kind of grains are bigger and wider. So that's an example for you right there. And here is also the another range, the Sanderson Waterford, also by Suncutcher's Mill. And here is the cold, and here is the rough. So you can see again that in this case the cold is very similar to Milford in terms of the textures. It goes in a line, in a kind of like almost a line as well. And then if we compare the Bockingford and the Sanderson Watford rough papers, I'd say they're quite close in terms of texture, but be aware that both of them are called white. So I guess if you prefer an off-white, you'd have to buy the Sanderson Watford, because the Bockingford my god, who comes up with these names, is a little bit more it's purer, so it's not kind of very white as you can compare to the Ultra Smooth, but it is a good color nonetheless.